Hello, hello. This is Tech Prakash with your astrology rundown for the week of November 6th, 2023. So we're working with plenty this week. We're still in an eclipse cycle. We're still at the end of a lunation. So the new moon in Libra started us off with the solar eclipse, followed by the full moon in Taurus, the lunar eclipse, which happened about a week or so ago. And these two are the energy of the season, the energy of the cycle. We're still in this cycle until we reach the end of this lunation at the new moon in Scorpio, which happens next Monday. Now, within this cycle, within this current moment, we're working with a specific energy. We're working with a specific frequency, and that frequency, the one that's consistent and building, aside from the fact that the sun is in Scorpio and the planets Mars and Mercury are both in Scorpio, we're working with this interaction that's building between Mars and Uranus. So Mars being action and will and our ability to do, and Uranus being our desire to change and individuate and separate ourselves from standardized descriptions. We'll just stay with that for a moment. The change, the disruption that happens in that process is Uranus. So we have Mars and Uranus interacting throughout the week, growing in potency, in power, until midday the 11th of November. So that'll be midday Pacific time. And that interaction is challenge. It is conflict energy, which is exactly what Mars and Uranus are in the first place. We have Mars, which is conflict in general, Uranus, which is disruption and disturbance. So we have a very disruptive, very confrontational, very active energy between the two. Now, they're both in internalized signs. So we have the signs of Scorpio, where Mars is, and the sign of Taurus, where Uranus currently is. So we have these internalized energies, and it's a bit less verbal, it's a bit less spoken, especially because Mercury is in Scorpio, where it would much rather stay quiet and just observe and see and try to investigate things. We have these internalized signs and this very active energy of confrontation and disruption in conflict with one another. And so that opportunity that brings up through those energies is the opportunity to act appropriately on the results of disruption. So as things become shaken underneath us, Uranus brings a kind of earthquake-like energy. We're able to act appropriately because there's nothing that Scorpio does not see. So we have Mars in Scorpio and Venus and Mercury in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, bringing us this very acute awareness of all of the details, all of the strange little parts. And in all of those details, in all of that investigation, we find all of the necessary bits that we need to act appropriately, to act accordingly. As something is disrupted, we can act quickly. We can act on something and do so powerfully, do so confidently. That's what we're looking for anyway. There's also the opportunity to not do that, which it's up to you really, but the opportunity to act powerfully in the face of disruption, disturbance, the unexpected, the unwarranted. So we get these powerful energies working against each other, but polarizing the things that we need so that we can act very powerfully in the world. Again, that frequency holds throughout the whole week. Other things that we have interacting with this, obviously the sun is in Scorpio and it's moving faster than Mars, so it's catching up with it. As we get into the 9th and 10th of this month, a few days from now, we get the sun bringing a more visceral awareness, a more conscious awareness to all of this disruption and conflict energy that Mars and Uranus are creating. The sun sheds light on the situation that it touches, and it currently, or in this time, will be touching on the conflict, touching on the, there's a word I'm looking for, and I'm going to find it somewhere in this blurb. But so we have the sun adding a huge amount of energy to that, because Scorpio is not just the investigator; it is also the psychic, the esoteric, the mythical realms where archetypes are born. Is in Scorpio. So it's this very powerful place where mystics and shamans reside. So we have this ability to tap into a kind of undercurrent, where here's reality, and then down here is the realm that we don't look for necessarily, but we can find it if we go looking, and we can tap into it at any given moment. We can tap into our psychic capacities. We can tap into the other side, quote unquote, the other side, for whatever purposes we see fit, but hopefully good purposes, and get into some of our more potent, subtle potentials. Very powerful time for that, very fun time for that, considering this season is ruled by Pluto. We have the death and rebirth, but also the transformation that happens within the psychological space that is basically a death as we transform from one version of ourselves to the next. Pluto rules the season, and then we also have the eclipse cycle, which is still carrying on, ruled by Venus, something that is much more open-hearted, much more collaborative, comparative, and balancing in all of this, much warmer, much more traditionally feminine. The energy of Venus playing out through the Libra eclipse at the beginning, in the middle of October, and the Taurus eclipse at the end of October, gives us this feeling of the Venusian kind, where in our hearts we can move in a different way. We can release much more potently the things that hold us back from actually having what we value and what we need. That all plays a part in what we're doing, the transformation that happens, the tapping into other realms, so that we can find, you know, some of the shit that we carry around doesn't live here in this world. It lives in a different version of us, in a different dimension, or it lives attached to us from different dimensions. And so we're working with all of that. We're working with this permeable veil between worlds. And in all of this, we have a lot of opportunity. Like I said, we have a lot of opportunity to remove our most powerful blocks, our most powerful hindrances, our most potent adversaries that we hold within ourselves. So we're working with that. And throughout this week, we have this energy, and we also have other things happening. We're in an internal space as we begin. The moon is currently in Virgo, holding us in a space of careful attention and cautious movement forward, and practice and dedication to practical things. And so we have an internalized space where we're, of our own accord, moving forward productively. And it feels good to do so. So apply that to the challenge and confrontation of this current moment, and we can move a lot. We can have a lot happen. We can do a lot of healing in this. The sign of healing is Virgo, in a real, physical, worldly sense, but also in a spiritual sense, where we heal the things that hold us back from our brightest spirit. Then we move into a more externalized version of this. We're still in the internal world of conflict and turmoil and chaos and change, but Venus, the sign of love, and the planet of love and affection and collaboration, moves from Virgo into Libra, into its home sign, one of its home signs of Libra. So we become more social, more interactive, more co-active, where we're trying to actually do things with other people and share things with other people, and share in the experiences that create heartfelt bonds. That's our Venusian desire when we're in Libra. We want to reach out and have someone, feel someone there. That's the idea. And so we create bonds, we create connections, we try to foster our relationships that have already existed, and we try to make new relationships and build upon both of them. So we have Venus moving into Libra. That happens on the 8th, early morning on the 8th. And then in the later part of the day on the 9th, we also get Mercury moving from Scorpio into Sagittarius. So we get these two external forms. So these two, the opportunity between Venus and Mercury is currently in play, because both of them are in this harmonious, energized kind of interaction called the sextile. They're 60 degrees apart, two signs apart, and so they're energizing one another, or rather, Mercury is energizing Venus, and so we have these two players interacting with one another, and communication and our hearts and our values and our desires all commingle with one another. We can connect it all very, very effectively, very affectionately, and there we have that. So we're moving from an internalized version of that, where Venus is in Virgo and Mercury is in Scorpio, to an external version of that, where Venus is in Libra and Mercury is in Sagittarius. And so we move into a space where we're working with other people, we're communicating with other people in an effective way. The Mercury and Sagittarius energy wants us to get out in the world and try to understand things more fully, to project our perspectives onto the world, because we've gained great perspective, great insight, while Mercury has been in Scorpio, where we're touching in on other alternate reality versions of us, to gain different powers and abilities, and to gather more of ourselves. And now we can kind of bring that out and project it into the world, and see if the world comes into a different kind of understanding, or rather we come into a different kind of understanding of the world. Sagittarius is that sign of natural law, natural order, and so we're exploring that. We're diving into that literally head first, Mercury being the mind, brain first, into the concrete realm of nature. So we get these two moving into an externalized space as we continue. The one thing holding that back into a space of kind of, we'll say, manageable calm, because the Venus in Libra just wants to be floating everywhere. It's an air sign, so we're very cerebral, very heady, or we'll just say airy. And then Mercury in Sagittarius, being the ruler of an air sign and also being in its fall in a fire sign. Technically it's in its fall because Mercury wants constant motion, constant exchange of energy and information. Sagittarius wants to stop just long enough to figure out what it means. It's not just the gathering of information, it's the application of information. So Mercury isn't necessarily in its happiest place in Sagittarius, because it has to try and understand. Instead of just moving the energy, it must experience the energy. But these two bring us into a better space of living in the exterior world. It's a bit frenetic. Mercury in Sagittarius, it's like, it's the flaming arrow. It's the flaming arrow. It's literally like, lighting your brain on fire and then running around trying to gather information and see what you can do with it. Saturn in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is in the very first part of Pisces, has just gone direct, so it's finally moving forward again. Things can be a little more productive, a little more real in the world. We can start to create things in a more effective way. Mercury squares this Piscean Saturn as soon as it moves into Sagittarius, and that 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 conflict, that version of conflict, is a version where if we effectively move in a mercurial way, we're challenging the Saturnian desire to be still and establish real ground to walk upon. Saturn just wants to be on the ground and be in the realms of Earth in a way that is more realistic. But it's in Pisces, so it's like it's like a it's it's like a cosmic mud bath. The strange contrast between Saturn and Pisces is actually reconciled because Saturn wants to build something, and ultimately what it wants to build is something to the highest place, and the highest place is found in Pisces, the realms of God. The Saturnian desire to build higher and higher and higher is ultimately realized in Pisces. So we have Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is a very spiritual place. The first instances of us trying to practice something akin to a godlike tradition happens in Sagittarius. We find God as possible in Scorpio. We start to practice and understand God in Sagittarius. We try to be God in Capricorn. We try to separate ourselves from God in Aquarius, and then we find God and become part of God, or become God in Pisces. And so we have these two very spiritual signs, Sagittarius and Pisces, contrasting one another but working well together if you connect them properly. Mercury in Sagittarius wants to go fast and explore and expand into the realms of what is natural law, and Saturn in Pisces wants to stay still long enough to meditate in such a way that there's a connection made at the top of the highest mountain, sitting on a chair, standing on a ladder, trying to get just a little bit higher, a little closer to God. We have these two interacting. So Saturn kind of chills it out. Saturn slows down that Mercury long enough so we actually get to experience the world and gain some power from it. So that's kind of the week. That's really what's going on. As we move further into the week, we have almost the new moon. Basically, the new moon happens early in the morning on the 13th in Pacific time. Obviously later in the day in different parts. But the new moon happens in Scorpio. As we move through the week, we get moon in Virgo until the early part of the 9th, where it moves into Libra, brings us a little looseness, kind of lightens things up a little bit, brings us out into the world a little more, like some of these other energies. The moon also at that point moves into the balsamic phase with the sun, so we get this final phase, these last 45 degrees before the new moon, where things are fading off, things that have started to build and are kind of amping up at the beginning of the cycle. At the end of the cycle, they fade out and dissolve into, or dissolve away, or calm down, whatever is happening. So things run in these cycles. We're working into the cycle where things are fading off. Some of the stuff that started in the beginning of this lunation, after the new moon in Libra, we get to let some of that chill the fuck out. It's been a wild month. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's been a wild few weeks. Much has happened, much has transpired, and now things can kind of calm down a little bit. Now, thinking about this, we have, so obviously Scorpio is heavily affected. If you've got powerful placements in Scorpio, that's being triggered, heavily affected currently, and it's a very Venusian time. So Taurus and Libra individuals may feel this in a particularly potent manner. So with that said, that's all I've got for you. I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you again next week. Have an awesome week, and definitely anticipate the Scorpio new moon. It's my favorite.